Hi everyone, Mrs. Miller here, and I am so excited to bring you today the third Summer Tuesday book talk of the series. I literally cannot wait. I have been itching for days to film the book talk and to bring it to you because I'm talking today about a book that I can honestly say is one of my favorite books now that I've read it of all time. It was a book that I've wanted to read for a while, and I had a couple of people suggest it to me during the school year, but there just wasn't time. So Danny and Connor, I want to say thank you for recommending today's book talk book to me because I just can't get it out of my brain. It's one of those books that when you pick it up, you can't put it down, and when you finish it, you want to read it all over again right after you're done. So it's an interesting tale. It's a very original story. It's science fiction, and I know that many of you think, Mrs. Miller, what's with you in the science fiction? But there are no aliens, there's no interplanetary travel, and in fact it takes place here on Earth sometime in the future, but in a very changed version of the world that we know. And it talks about some very interesting questions, namely, what happens when you are forced to choose between what makes us human and saving your own life. Today's Tuesday Book Talk book is The Hunger Games, and it's by Suzanne Collins. You may know her. She's very famous for writing the Gregor the Overlander series. But it's my professional opinion that she will become more famous for this series than her Gregor books. I mentioned that this is science fiction and it takes place here on Earth in the future. Well, it takes place in the country of Panem. And Panem is located on what used to be North America. Apparently sometime in our future, in the novel's past, there were extreme catastrophes, sea levels rising, major food shortages, and the continent of North America shrunk into one centralized capital, that's called the capital, and 13 districts. And everything was wonderful and peaceful for a few years, until a time in Panem's history called the Dark Days, when there were extreme shortages of food, people were dying of hunger, they didn't have enough to eat, and the people in the districts got angry at the government in the capital because they felt like the capital wasn't doing enough to help them. And so the people in the 13 districts decided to rise up and rebel against the capital. The capital didn't like it. And in fact, as a warning to the other districts, the capital destroyed everyone and everything in District 13, which caused the other 12 districts to throw up their hands and say, okay, we surrender, we will listen to you, we submit. And so a new law came to pass, and the capital basically is in charge of everything. Each district has a different skill. Some are agriculture, some mining, some trades, electronics. But every year, the capital has a holiday, and it's called the reaping. And the reaping is where one boy and one girl from each district, two tributes, as they're called, have their names chosen from a lottery. And those two tributes are put into what's called the Hunger Games. And it is a knockdown, drag-out, reality show type competition. The whole thing is televised. It's kind of a cross between Survivor, Survivor Man, Man vs. Wild, the Olympics, but with one gruesome twist. Only one person comes out of the Hunger Games alive. It is your job to survive as long as you can and to kill as many of your competitors so that you are the last person literally standing. And every boy and girl between the ages of 12 and 18 have their names put into the lottery for the Hunger Games drawing. And our main character, whose name is Katniss Everdeen, she lives in District 12, which is a coal mining district. Katniss's father was killed when she was 11 in a coal mining explosion. It left Katniss responsible for not only the care of herself, but her mother and her younger sister Prim. Katniss's mother, right after her father died, fell into a deep depression and didn't care for the family. And it was up to Katniss to get the food, provide anything that the family needed. And there were times when she and her family were on the brink of starvation. But she became an expert hunter. She would travel into the forbidden areas outside of the district and hunt for meat. She knew what plants were edible, and she was able to, in the town, trade her kills for other things that her family needed. And she became very adept with shooting with a bow and arrow. And every day she goes out into the woods with her best friend Gail, who is 2 years older than she is, to hunt and provide for their families. When the book opens, it's on the day of the reaping. Katniss is 16, and one of the things that's interesting about the Hunger Games is that if you are eligible, if you're between the ages of 12 and 18, and your family is poor and very hungry, you can opt to put your name in the bowl more than once in exchange for a year's supply of grains and things for your families to eat. So Katniss, since the age of 12, has been putting her name in the bowl along with multiple names of her own so that she could make sure that her mother and sister were provided for. Her friend Gail, who's 2 years older than she is, has many younger brothers and sisters, so he, in the years he's been eligible for the Hunger Games, has put his name in the bowl 40 times. And so on the day that we meet Katniss, it's the reaping day, and the whole district, the whole country is gathered in public squares. It's required to watch the reaping, and Katniss is worried that her name is going to be pulled. She's very nervous also because it's the first year her sister, Prim, has been eligible for the Hunger Games. And she made sure, Katniss made sure, she loves her sister dearly, she made sure that Prim's name was only in the bowl one time, so that she could at least know that the odds were in Prim's favor. Well, on the day of the reaping, it is Prim's name who is pulled out of the bowl. And Katniss is so shocked and so frightened that she instantly volunteers. She volunteers to take her sister's place, which is allowed in the Hunger Games. And also from her district, a boy named Peeta Mellark, who is the baker's son that Katniss only briefly knows through school and an incident that happened in their past, is also chosen. And they literally have no time to say their goodbyes. They are whisked away to the capital. Katniss has to leave behind everything she's ever known, ever loved, to go to the capital where she is groomed. She gets a stylist to change her total look. She gets a coach whose name is Haymitch. He is a former winner from District 12. He's the only living survivor of the Hunger Games from District 12, but he's a drunk and kind of useless. And while they're there in the capital, they train, they're evaluated by the game makers, and Katniss has to decide whether or not she's going to trust Peeta, her fellow tribute. Her stylist comes up with this clever plan, this clever ruse, because District 12 is not favored. It's a very weak district, very poor district. So the other districts, some of the others, are richer and highly favored to win the games. So her stylist comes up with a plan to make it seem as if Peeta and Katniss are in love with each other, so that the viewers at home are really interested in watching and wanting them to win. And Katniss at first thinks it's a good idea, but she doesn't really know if she can trust Peeta, because she knows that in the end, one of them will have to die in order for the other to win.